Today, the European Union is raising the alarm over Russia's actions in Europe with civil aviation under threat. What happened? Just from January to April this year, almost 123,000 civil aviation flights in the Baltic region experienced problems with satellite navigation. Mainly Sweden, Finland, the Baltics, and Poland. The source of the interference is on the Russian side. In fact, Russia is jamming global positioning system, which leads to emergency landings of civilian planes. And interestingly, this wasn't made public until it became a huge public problem. This is stated in a report by the countries of the Northern European region to the International Civil Aviation Organization. In practice, pilots more often land the old-fashioned way and have to land the planes manually. Air traffic controllers get nervous, schedules are disrupted, and this brings huge losses to the airline. And, importantly, European intelligence agencies have even identified the locations from which Russians are jamming global positioning system signals over Europe. My name is Alexei Pechi. Let's break down this topic together. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, give it a like, leave any comment under this episode, and be sure to subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pechi News. The link to it is in the description of this video. There we post up-to-date news and reviews. So the trigger for revealing information about Russians jamming planes in Europe was the high-profile story with Ursula von der Leyen's plane, which was landing in Bulgaria. And, as they stated in Brussels, quote, "We can confirm that there was global positioning system jamming." The plane landed in Bulgaria, and the Bulgarian authorities reported suspicions of Russian interference. This is kind of a diplomatic level. In practice, the issue has moved from the military vocabulary to the agenda of the European Commission. And guys, this is a high-profile case that's connected to the plane of the entire president of the European Commission. But it turned out that the situation has been critical for half a year already, and in fact thousands, tens of thousands of planes have been attacked by the Russians. But in Europe, they were just trying to keep quiet about this problem. And now, the Financial Times adds to the picture. Officials suspect that the global positioning system jamming operation forced the plane of the head of the European Commission to land in Plovdiv using paper maps. This is exactly what hybrid attacks look like. It's not about planes crashing, it's not about explosions, it's about putting pressure on people and systems, which leads to huge losses for NATO. The incident with Ursula von der Leyen's plane was met without hysteria, but finally the problem was clearly and publicly identified. Quote, "NATO is working on countering Russian global positioning system jamming." The incident with von der Leyen's plane is part of a broader campaign of hybrid threats from Russia. What does that mean? The alliance is finally raising the issue at the level of air defense, electronic warfare, and space surveillance. And yes, as you've realized, this isn't an isolated malfunction, it's simply what's surfaced. The European Aviation Safety Agency and the International Air Transport Association, as it turns out, released a report back in June that contained some alarming information. Quote, "Reports of global navigation satellite system signal interference are increasing. Prevention and mitigation measures are needed. In practice, as stated in the report by these agencies, crew training is needed, a return to ground-based navigation aids, new briefings, and restructuring of landing approaches with an emphasis on VOR and instrument landing system. As you understand, all of this costs money and takes time. And that's exactly the effect that Russia is aiming for. The European Union has already gone into space to address this issue. Quote, "We'll add satellites in low orbit to enhance interference detection." This is a statement from the European Commissioner for Defense. This means that the fight will move into signal intelligence, not just some briefings. Now, here are the facts about the scale of the problem. Reports from relevant European and international agencies show a total of 123,000 flights with global navigation satellite system violations in the first 4 months of 2025. Up to 27% of flights in April were affected by Russian interference. Yes, you might say this doesn't affect every plane, but it's about a systematic disruption of the network. In practice, an extra loop for the plane, 2 more tons of kerosene, added delays along routes, and so on. I'll honestly note the objection as well. The Bulgarian Prime Minister, a few days after Ursula von der Leyen's plane incident, there is no evidence of prolonged jamming at the time of landing. The lawyers played it safe, but the issue remains. Brussels and NATO openly discuss the problem, and jamming maps near Kaliningrad and Crimea stay red. This statement again comes from the agencies. The argument is really about the terminology, not about the existence of the phenomenon itself. It's also important to note this. The authorities were able to determine that the sources of interference are located in Russia, in Kaliningrad, St. Petersburg, Smolensk, and Rostov. European aviation authorities have issued warnings for pilots and called on airlines to strengthen security measures. In August, it became known that the International Civil Aviation Organization may strip Russia of its rights to existing and new radio frequencies for civil aviation. As a response to the widespread cases of global positioning system jamming in the Baltic Sea region. This is no longer a myth, it's now reality. Once again, at the end of June, Finland, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania filed a complaint with the International Telecommunication Union. Then, together with Sweden and Poland, they notified the organization about the increased activity of Russian electronic warfare systems aimed at disrupting aircraft, providing detailed figures. After studying the data, the Civil Aviation Organization expressed serious concern about flight safety, stating that if Russia does not take measures to eliminate the interference within 30 days, it will be considered a potential violation of international law. Moscow, in this situation, will of course say that these are all matters of defense. Brussels rightly calls this a hybrid attack. And the reality is even simpler. The Russians are hiding behind the claim that military electronic warfare is supposedly protecting Russian facilities from Ukrainian attacks, blinding the civilian traffic of European planes. For the European Union, this is a convenient case to speed up satellite projects, invest in navigation resilience, and at the same time explain to the European taxpayer why they are helping Ukraine. This is also about their security. As for the economy and logistics, Eurocontrol is already at its limit in the summer. Over 1 million flights per month across Europe. Add systematic jamming and you get a network of constant, seemingly minor delays from Helsinki to Madrid plus insurance costs. In the Baltic and the North Sea, airlines plan for more fuel and more time. It's all about money, and where there's money, it's all about the price of tickets for flights across Europe. Importantly, the data from Eurocontrol and industry delay trends correlate with public briefings from the European Union Aviation Safety Agency and the International Air Transport Association. So these are all already public reports. That's when the Europeans conducted an investigation, figured out the problem and so on, and then released this information. Now, regarding the consequences for Ukraine, it's paradoxical here. Plus, when Europeans personally experience Russian electronic warfare, budgets for countermeasures appear more quickly. From ground-based systems to satellites and counter-electronic warfare gear, all sent to Ukraine. For the European Union and United States invest in navigation, space, and enhancing NATO's electronic warfare capabilities. For markets and energy, there is an increase in operating costs for airlines and insurance in the region. In conclusion, this is a war, a hybrid war of radio signals that Russia has unleashed against Europe. This is also an attack on planes with peaceful Europeans on board. The effect is material delays, money, and politics. Europe is moving from a reactive mode to a preventive one, while the Kremlin is getting return fire from space to sanctions. But all of this will only happen if Europe actually starts to take real action. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments under this episode, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. That's all for now. Take care. Goodbye.